So for today's episode, I'm just so excited for our next guest. He's actually a former classmate of mine. We trained very intensely in theater, and I'm saying intensely, MFA program, 3 years, about 12 hours a day. So yeah, we spent a lot of time together, and I've loved seeing his journey ever since we graduated. He's been a professional actor and filmmaker in New York for over a decade. Currently, he's working as a mayor. That's been since 2019, but he's also worked as a trustee, and he also works for the Ford Foundation. So I'm just so excited to hear what he has to say about how performance has enhanced his life and how it helps him in all of his various roles. So you can follow him on Twitter at Chance Mullen, and please give a warm welcome to Chance Mullen.
Hi,
Chance.
how's it going, Samantha?
Good. It's so good to see you.
You too. You too.
Yeah. So it feels like forever ago, and also not too long ago that we were taking voice classes and practicing Suzuki and just all of that, living at the drama school.
Yeah, it is strange. I can't believe it's been like 15 years or something.
Don't tell people that.
I'm sorry, but
No,
that
it's
is
okay.
wild.
I know, it is wild. No, see, it's so funny. It's like, I love people to know for my coaching. So thank you, listeners. But if you're a director, just remember, a wig, some makeup, I'm however old I need to be.
It's also funny about actors.
Yeah.
I think whenever you make friends with people, and then you're in an acting environment, whether you're in a show with them or you went through a really intense MFA program with them, you can reconnect at any point in the future.
Yeah.
And it's like coming back to family.
Yeah.
And so I think in a strange way, actually, the pandemic has sort of prompted some of those reconnections. So it's good to see you. It's like it was yesterday.
Yeah, it's like it was yesterday. Thanks. Yeah, and that, the age thing that I was joking about, I used to tell people all the time after we'd be doing touring shows and this and that, and audience members would say, well, how old are you? I'd say no problem. And then it wasn't until an older actress told me, not that much older than me, but she said, you better stop now, because once you turn 30, things are going to change, because they did for her. And, it's personally not something I agree with, but it's an awareness I have. So that's the only reason why. Otherwise, the older we get, the better it is, because we're lucky enough to age.
That is exactly right.
Yeah.
It means we've survived.
Right? Another year older is another year of all the things that we've survived and learned.
Exactly. That's a really sad way to put it, but hey, we made it this far, Samantha.
It's true, but because the thing is, I always thought, it's horrible how when people are celebrating, like they don't want to celebrate. Most people I meet, after you get to be a certain age, it's like they don't want to celebrate. Like, oh, don't tell people. Not because they're worried about casting and they talk like this. I'm just doing that voice. But it's like, no, even more reason to celebrate.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely agree.
Yeah. So you moved, just kind of jumping in here again, you moved to New York pretty much right after grad school, right?
Yeah. I had been in Seattle for 3 years. And, prior to Seattle, I grew up in Southwest Kansas, and born and raised, went to Kansas State University for my theater degree. Then I moved to Chicago for a year. Then I came out to Seattle for 3 years. And I remember coming out of Seattle and doing the showcases. We did these acting showcases. And, the question at that time for everyone was, do I stay in Seattle? Do I go to LA, or do I go to New York City?
Yeah.
And when I was in LA, I felt like LA kind of made me wish I was cooler. And but then when I got to New York, New York makes you feel like you are cool. Like you're just cool being there.
Yeah.
And there's no temptation. I think sometimes in LA you feel like, I want to be the top dog in LA.
Uh-huh.
And in New York, no one's the top dog in New York. New York is the top dog. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in, if you're in finance or tech or theater or filmmaking, you are just a cog in the wheel. And I personally really liked that. So yeah, I was in the city acting
Yeah.
uh, for a good amount of time. We were living in the city for the first 6 years, and then in 2012, kind of got hit by the recession,
Uh,
and we were looking for a new place close to the city where we could still commute, but be a little bit further out. And we had our son at the time, who was about 2 years old, and so we found Pelham, the village of Pelham, which is right on the edge of the city. So
mhm.
right on the other side of the border is the Bronx, and then you get into Pelham. And we've been here ever since, last 8 years now.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you really feel like you found home.
Definitely love this place. Great schools, great little downtown. It's a small town, and it's not a small town like it was when I was growing up in Kansas. Small towns
Yeah.
in Kansas are, you have a small town with 5,000 people, and then there's nothing for an hour.
Yeah.
Here, we're a small town, but then you walk to the edge of town, and then across the street is a city. So you're not cut off, but it is it's a small little town, a small little village,
Yeah.
and it's great. It's great.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember when I was, because I stayed around in Seattle for a while, did some theater up here and, film work and stuff like that. And then when I was deciding, I got to that point too of, okay, I feel like I did what I wanted to here. So I go to New York or LA, visited both places. And I think I had been given advice that, for an actor, most of your time is looking for work. Just kind of,
Yeah.
that's just kind of how it is until you hit like that jackpot of a recurring show that just lasts and lasts, which are kind of rare and far and few between. So like
Right.
most of your time is going to be spent not actually on set or working. So
Right.
where would you prefer to live? Like what area makes you feel like you'd rather live? And I think the reason why I picked LA was I'd actually lived, like I was born in New York, so I actually lived there
Oh yeah.
for a bit, and so it just seemed like it was a new experience. But
Yeah.
also, probably the biggest thing is it wasn't as far to Seattle, so I could visit home more often. And
Oh
then
yeah.
just from growing up in Montana, I'm like, I need to see some mountains. If I don't see some mountains, I don't think I'm going to be super like loving it. So yeah, that was kind of the deciding factor for me. Um,
Yeah. I do miss the mountains.
yeah, every
The
place has its
green.
like pros and cons, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. But when you were talking about the recession, I hadn't thought about it because I moved in uh like mid 2011 down
Hmm.
there to LA, and it was so hard just to get a regular job.
Oh yeah.
Right. I remember I had
Oh yeah.
gone to, get that sort of survival restaurant job. Uh,
Yeah.
it's a stereotype for a reason. It works well. Right.
It
But
does.
I went to the interview and I was still all shiny and like, oh, I'm new and this is great, And I remember um, the manager or the hiring director, he was like, "What's wrong with you?" Like, excuse me? He goes, "You don't seem desperate at all." I said,
Huh.
well, I'm not. And he's like, "Do you realize how many people are trying to get jobs right now?"
Huh.
I put the ad out on Craigslist at 9 a.m. By 11 a.m., I already had 1,000 people respond, so I had to cut it off. And then he narrowed that down to, significantly. So, that was a big
Wow.
wake up call for me for, geez, no wonder why it's hard to get acting work out here, because even just trying to get a serving job,
Right.
the competition is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
It
so
makes us better though. I think that's you know ev- whenever you're in an industry like that,
yeah.
you're doing something that the average citizen is not doing.
Hmm.
That the easiest thing in the world is once you get a job, you stay in the job, you slowly get promoted, you get some things on your resume, and then you usually don't go back down, right? You don't go back down the ladder.
Yeah.
And the acting industry is one where you're constantly criticized and judged, and you're always looking for another job, and you're always kind of hustling, and if you're not hustling, you're not going to get anything. And now I've kind of like, hung up the spurs, so to speak. And I'm grateful to have done that,
Yes.
because it makes you smarter. It makes you quicker on your feet. You're more comfortable being in an environment where people are kind of, measuring you up.
Right.
There's a level of scrutiny that the typical actor goes through that I don't think most people are comfortable with.
Right. Yeah, I think, learning to deal with that inevitable rejection and
Yeah.
letting it help you rise up instead of crush you. And
Yeah.
then also learning how to take feedback and learning to separate it from yourself so that, if you're at a day job or whatever, and your manager says like, hey, let's work on this email or your customer complaint or whatever it might be for how you have
Right.
to rise up. I mean, when you're sitting in a rehearsal room and you're crying your eyes out and the director is like, that's not it, do it again. you know,
Right.
you gotta get that separation and not take it so personally.
Yeah, and you have to show up in the room.
Yeah.
When I was most of that period of time when I was in the city, really up until about 2018, I was doing a lot of commercials, and commercials are it's a numbers game. So you just have to go out. I think I remember early on someone telling me you've got to assume that you're going to get one for every 25 auditions. And there were some years that was true. There were some years I was a little bit better than that curve. But it really changes your perspective on the audition process.
Right.
Because you're just going in and you're just saying, I'm just going to do what I got to do, and then I'm going to go have lunch.
Right.
And I'm going to leave it wherever it is. And I also know that if I don't do a great job, which happens,
Right.
then there's going to be another one tomorrow, and then I'll just go do that one. And I think once you kind of give up the criticism or get comfortable with the criticism and get comfortable with the rejection, it's really liberating, because you're just kind of walking in and going, this is what I do.
Yes. Yeah. You just walk in and say, this is what I do. Yeah. I think there was, for me, like a shift in my approach to my commercial auditions too, with like initially trying to figure out, like, maybe being a little bit more serious about it. And then at a certain point, I realized I just need to go in there and have fun. Like,
Exactly.
It's a commercial. They're trying to sell stuff. Like, don't worry about it. There's thousands of people auditioning for the same thing. Just let me enjoy myself and have fun. And then, of course, that, I started to book more then, but, yeah, going in, just doing your thing and just like, hey, let's just have some fun.
Yeah.
Let's just be
It is
present
fun.
and have some fun. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I found commercial auditions to be way more challenging than for like, scenes or movies or whatnot. I'm sorry, theater or film, if I am not having a good day. Because if I'm not having a good day and I have to work with a scene partner and I have all these lines to distract myself with, it's so much easier to switch that. But if I have to drive like an hour to a commercial audition that's 10 seconds long, and they're like, smile here, laugh here, and they're just looking for the shiny brights in your eyes, and you're just like, I'm having a bad day.
I was lucky because I always went in for goofball stuff. And I'm always in the mood for some goofball stuff. and I can do that when I'm kind of in a bad mood. That's just a little bit of a goofball. So
yeah.
Usually, even if I was having kind of a bad day, the audition itself cheered me up.
That's true.
Because I got to walk in and it's like, and I mean, sometimes you pick up the script and you're like, oh my God, this is so dumb. But most of the time, there was a period of time where there were some commercials out there that were hilarious. And you read it and you're like, that is hysterical. And, and then you get to play with it. So I enjoyed the just spontaneity of it and the fun of it. I didn't have my best days when I knew I had like a 3-page script, because I felt like, first of all, those didn't come around as often as the commercial auditions. So it was much harder for me to be able to go in and audition for a play, and with the same kind of abandon that I could with commercials, because it just felt like the stakes were much higher.
Yeah.
But generally, I didn't have as much fun doing it, honestly. And oftentimes it was, not to go on too much of a tangent, but I always felt like if I was auditioning for theater, I was auditioning for something that was going to suck up a ton of time and prevent me from doing a whole lot of other things. And I wasn't going to get paid very well. And most likely, the theater director was a jerk. And it was just a reality where if you go into a commercial setting, you see people with kids, you see middle-class folks, and they're all having a good time, and everybody knows, hey, if I get this, I'm going to make some money,
Right.
and this will be worth it. This will be worth my time.
Yeah.
And it's always very strange to walk into a room where someone's not going to pay you, and they're like, show me what you have. Like, show me what you have. Who are you? I never understood that. There was just something about that I always felt like, what are you doing right now? Why are you judging me?
That's a good point. It is funny because I remember one of my highest paid days on set so far. It was also one of the days I was treated the best. I feel like I've been fortunate to generally be treated well.
Yeah.
But it's like, I get treated even better when you're giving me more money. It's like, thank you, yes.
Right. And the only times where someone has kind of looked over their nose at me and then like not looked at me while I was auditioning and just looked at my resume was when they weren't going to pay me. I thought, hey man, I'm making your thing work.
Right.
I'm working a temp job so that you can do a play. So, where's the respect here?
That's a good monologue. Did you write that out? Because I mean, lots of people could perform that and they'd be spot on. They'd just tap right. Their muscle memory, it would just be.
They couldn't use it for an audition.
Maybe. Well, yeah, I know. If it's one where you like bring in your own. But yes, I'm flying off jumping the shark. No, not jumping the shark. It's just funny. Yes. Okay. I need to keep making sound for people who are listening to the podcast so they don't think that I've just abandoned it. We've abandoned it to go make that monologue, you guys. No, I'm going to leave it in. I don't know. Who doesn't need to laugh? Right.
When you first reached out to me here, I got to say something that I think is really funny. So I'm a mayor now.
Yeah.
And some people don't know that I had a background in acting. There's always something funny when people find out that you're an actor. And the thing that always strikes me as interesting is usually when people find out that I have professional training as an actor, it's like they suddenly decide that I might be lying to them. Like I might be faking it.
Oh.
And I think that there's an assumption by non-actors that actors just learn how to fake it really well. And if you ask actors, or at least good actors who've had some training, it's the opposite of that. It's actually learning how to be more like yourself, even when people are looking at you. And so it's very funny to me because I think that there's an impression of actors that is, what are they up to? They're vain. They've got a persona. They're kind of doing that. And I think most of the good actors that I've come across in my life are actually very persona-less
Mm-hmm.
and very much just themselves, and more honest and more comfortable being themselves in large groups of people.
Right.
So it's an interesting thing to come across, especially now as an elected official, where
Yeah.
I have to speak and I have to take positions on things and debate people on things and advocate for stuff. And every now and then I can tell that when somebody finds out that I had a background in acting, it takes them a second,
Yeah.
where they're like, oh, so are you just like, is this fake?
Right. Well, because a lot of people already don't trust politicians.
Yes,
So then
definitely.
they are thinking, but for somebody who's been through like an acting program, like for me, I would be more inclined to believe them because, to me, like if it was, well, because there's the difference, of course, between like celebrity and
Yes,
acting, and then how is the person acting too? Are they at a community theater or doing theater? Are they doing, are they just all the different shades of and types of acting. But if I'd met somebody who'd been through the same similar background as myself,
mm,
in general, I feel like we're more inclined to trust them because we think we know what that means. And
right.
I would know that means that, okay, you spent time empathizing with people, you spent time having to imagine yourself in their scenario,
Yes,
you spent time having to work with people who are not like you and
right.
working together. Um,
It's a
so
very
yeah,
it's a very different life. I mean, lots of people go lots of different places in the world, and people, interact with different people, different cultures, different towns. Uh, but there are also a lot of people who do not spend much time with people who are different from them.
yeah.
That they grow up in a town, and even when they move to another town, they're probably going to meet most of the people they know through their job. They'll be in a similar socioeconomic status, the similar values. um, I think for most of us as actors, I grew up in a conservative Christian home in Southwest Kansas, and then you know then went and did theater, and then moved to Chicago, moved to Seattle, moved to New York City. I can't think of many times in my life, uh, especially during the period of time when I was acting, when I was around people who had a similar background as me.
Yeah.
That even our class, we all came from so many different walks of life,
Yeah.
and then we were with each other in a really intense, really intimate setting, and it changes a person when you spend so much time in your life being around people who are different. It's not at all surprising to me that most actors are pretty liberal, that
Right.
they're going to be, in favor of civil rights and in favor of gay rights and in favor of women's rights, and they're going to be saying, yeah, you got to help out the working person, because that's the life of an actor. And it's a beautiful thing. I feel like it's made me like a better person,
Yeah.
because I feel like I understand other people differently, and better. Uh, it's also what you brought up, I think, uh, with the actual work of acting and being able to pick up a script and say, huh, I'm playing a character that, kills their father. And how do I take that on without judgment? And this is wildly different than my value set, but how do I get behind this?
Right.
Uh, and it's just practice in empathy
Yeah.
over and over and over and over again.
Yep.
And in a lot of ways, I feel like that's really what my role as mayor is. I'm If I'm at a board meeting and 10 people come up to say, hey, I need this, hey, I need that, hey, I need this, it's my job is to be able to say, okay, what are you experiencing? Where is that coming from? What can I do to solve it? Without judgment, without saying, well, I don't believe you, right?
Right.
And instead saying, okay, let me kind of try to put myself in your shoes, and let's figure out how we solve this. And it's been really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. But I feel like they're very lucky to have you.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so when you did, become mayor, like how long have you been interested in politics? Was this something that you had in mind that you wanted to go on this route for a while?
Yeah, I've been active in politics for a while. I remember back when we were in Seattle and going door to door for the Human Rights Campaign, back when we were fighting for marriage equality. So I've been active as a citizen for a long time. And then in 2017, we had this big election in 2016. And all through that, I was engaged and had a lot of opinions. And Francine, my wife, kept pushing me. She said, "Listen, you got to run. You've got opinions. You have an understanding of how government works, and you seem to have some ideas on how to make it work better. Why don't you run?" And I was reluctant because I was acting, didn't have a lot of money, wasn't connected to anything.
Oh, wow.
And then in January 2017, we went to the Democrats' midwinter party in Pelham. And it was the day after the Women's March that year. And usually the midwinter party is, I laugh because it's usually like 90% midwinter and 10% party.
Oh.
It's very low key. Usually hardly anyone is there. That year, man, it was insane. 100 people all packed into this little house, and everybody, there were party leaders up at the front of the room answering questions, and everybody's like, how do we get involved? And Fran just kept elbowing me, and she's like, ask them how you run. I'm like, yeah, okay. And I was afraid. I thought I would look stupid if I was just some random guy like, I want to run. And she kept nudging me, and finally she just said, never mind. And she moved away from me and then stuck her hand up in the air. And they called on her, and she said, hey, how do you run for local office? And everybody went silent, and they said, do you want to run for local office? And she said, no, but he does. And 5 minutes later, I was running.
That's
And then
amazing.
2 months after that, got elected as trustee. And it has turned out great. I love it. I really do love it. And I see it as, it's one of the purest ways to change the world that my child is living in.
Mm.
And he's growing, he's 10 years old now.
Yeah.
He's growing up in this place.
Yeah.
And I know that I get to influence it. And I know that when he gets to an age where he's looking back at Pelham as his home,
Yeah.
he's going to know that I did some things that just set a few things in motion so that he can go, man, my dad really impacted my home.
Right.
It's great. I love it.
That's so beautiful, And just as an aside, like I remember you like from school, I just remember you as always being somebody with a heart for family, because I really care about family too. So it has been it's like your joy in your family, like it makes other people happy too. Like his wife is wildly talented, have a lot of respect for her. Their kid is just gorgeous. So it's awesome seeing you guys being happy and you still making your positive difference and doing all of that. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really
Thank
neat.
you.
Of course. Yeah. So we're almost getting to that point where we're getting close to time. And
yeah.
I wanted to ask you, because you already gave so many amazing reasons for how this has helped improve your life.
Mhm.
I have two questions. One is going to be a favorite role that you've played or a dream role. That could be two
Oh,
questions. And then
oh
the other
my.
one, so that I don't forget, is when you moved to New York initially, after grad school, what were the best and hardest things about, the early days there? Do we want to
Hmm.
start with that one, and then we'll go to the favorite roles?
No, I'll do the favorite role
Oh,
because
okay, we'll do the favorite roles. Okay.
that one's easy. So I played I don't know the name, I think Gordon or something. No, not Gordon. I don't know. In A New Brain, there is a movie
Oh,
called A New Brain, and I
uh-huh.
played the lead in that when I was at Kansas State University. And I just really loved it. It was like right at that spot where I felt like I was a senior in college, so you're kind of like, moving into your own kind of
Yep.
command of your own process, and you can show up at your best.
Yeah.
uh, and I really really loved it. um, Outside of that, I think I would like playing Iago.
Oh,
I would like playing Iago
I could
because
see that.
it's super dark, and I've played funny people so much,
Yeah.
that I know yeah, I would just enjoy playing the darkness of that, because I think
Yeah.
Iago's a very
Very
complicated.
interesting character, right?
Yeah.
And I guess for listeners, if you're not familiar with it, that's from Othello, and
Mhm.
he is a betrayer of trust.
Yes.
Yes,
Among
he
many
is
other things.
yes, among many other things. And I can relate, and I know I've said this on the podcast before, but like, I'm a kind, empathetic person who deeply cares about other people's feelings. Sometimes it is just so nice to play horrible characters. It's
Yeah.
just nice to get on the stage, let out like these like things that I'd never want to act out in real life, scream, murder. I mean, like, I don't know, like Medea or something, would never want
Yes.
to live like her, but boy, are they fun to play. And
And
they
it's
have their
fun to
own
play.
lessons.
Yes.
And it helps. I mean, it also helps show the audience what not to do.
Yes. But it's also really fun to play smart people.
Hmm.
And usually the smartest people are villains.
Ooh,
And
yeah,
that's just fun. It's fun to
yeah,
outwit people,
yeah.
you know?
And I feel like there's a bit more work to do with them too as an actor, because for like the leading hero type or something,
Mhm.
we see it often, we understand it. It can tend to be a bit more formulaic. Like the villain is the one that's different. And then
Yes,
their thinking goes contrary to the thinking that we have in our everyday lives or what we necessarily read about often. So there's
definitely.
kind of more juicy things to dig into there sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So, and then for um, the New Brain musical, obviously like a really fun role, and definitely the timing and everything that you said, it makes total sense. But what was it specifically about that character that was fun for you to play, or,
Um,
or like a way that it made you feel, or maybe a new
it,
experience?
it's a very talking musical,
Mhm.
and it just clips along. I think it was just the style of the show, and it was very, we had a very sparse set, and the way the lyrics fall out, there's a lot of real quick lyrics. Um, so I think it's just the style of it was just really fun to play, and it felt like talking to music.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the version of musicals that I like most, where it's not, an aria or something, or lots of ballads.
Right.
I like that just kind of quick paced people saying things at the speed of their thought, rather than now I'm going to stop and do this song.
Right. Yeah. I just got a memory. You did Giants in the Sky, didn't you? In
Yes,
grad school. And that one was a lot of fun watching you do. That was a good one for you
that was
too.
a fun one to do.
I'd love to play the witch in the
Oh yeah,
Into the Woods, that
Into
musical.
the
Into
Woods.
the Woods. Yeah. Cool. Great. Okay. And so then just transitioning back to that transition from Seattle to New York. just curious, what were maybe some of the hardest things and best things or most fulfilling things about that initial experience?
I think the hard things, it's a lot of the the things that are hard anytime you get out of school, you get
Hmm.
out of college. You're There's this feeling that you're losing time, and that you have to, those first couple of years out of graduate school, it feels like you're in a race against all the other people who are coming out into the world, and um, you want to capitalize on it. And that after you get out of grad school, the feeling is you come out of grad school, you do these showcases, you try to get agents. You get an agent, and then you start doing commercials, and then you're trying to think, okay, well, if I get a commercial, then I'll get, a show. And if I get a show, then I'll get a different agent, and I'll get this and I'll get
Yeah.
that. And it's a rat race, and it's very difficult to just step back and just be and just exist without feeling that pressure to uh, to get it all. And that's hard. That's a really hard aspect of it. And so much of my memories around those first couple of years out of graduate school, and so many decisions I made, were just around that feeling of I gotta do something. I
Mm-hmm.
gotta stay busy. I've got to be in like 4 shows at all times because someone's going to ask me what I'm doing, and I have to
Right.
be able to tell them what I'm doing. It's so ridiculous, Oh well, me, I did 4 commercials and 3 shows, and I've got a production company, and I'm writing this, and it's such a strange environment to be in, but it
Yeah.
feels like that. It feels like you have to constantly prove that your trajectory is up, and yeah,
It, uh, so many things about what you're saying. Okay, so with that experience, I have also experienced that, particularly in LA, when people are saying what they're up to, and then they ask what are you up to, and they're all interested until you say maybe you haven't done something in a month, and you see the light fade from their eyes. You see how quickly they lose interest in you as a human being, and there definitely are people who operate on that level, and then people who don't. Because I know other people would look at you like, you're doing too much. Why are you like, why don't you just relax?
right.
It's kind of hard. It can be hard to meet people that are on that same sort of wavelength, that are doing a similar amount to you, and they're like, yes, this amount makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
oh, so it was also just, when you're talking about getting out of school, there are certain real life transitionary difficulties that I think apply in general to most people leaving the academia into the real world. But then on top of that, there are the artist ones. And I think it
Yeah.
took me a while to kind of peel apart the layers and see, oh, this difficulty, I'm not the only one feeling this. Pretty much all actors are feeling this. Or it's not just actors, it's pretty much everybody who leaves school, and they
Mhm.
think their degree is going to mean they're going to have this kind of life, this kind of pathway. And then the shock of, oh, wait, but what's the real world application with, certain things that you can only learn when you're actually doing the thing.
Yeah.
It's inevitably different out of the classroom.
Oh, yeah. And there are just aspects of that environment that I think are not really very healthy, and lend to, I think a lot of actors experience a ton of abuse because of that environment.
Which
Um,
environment?
just the environment of feeling like you always have to prove yourself, and you
Uh,
always have to be ahead, and you always
yes.
have to have something to say. Um, it just it creates a desperation that I don't think is helpful to people.
Yeah.
And I wish that there was some other way to do it. And I don't know what that other way is, but But I think on an individual level, I know that I got to a point where I thought, there are going to be some things that I'm going to do. Some things I'm just not going to do. And if I end up not being a successful actor, I won't be a successful actor.
So many things. Yeah, I came to realize that a lot, and actually, I was mentioning to you before this that I had the interview with Coot Blackson. It's episode 5, Evolution and Uncertainty, if you haven't listened to it yet. But he talks about, and he's a transformational coach, but he talks about how so much unhappiness and suffering people have is because we're trying to hold on to the things that aren't certain. And I'm thinking about actors, of course, and especially the actors that I know in LA, because they've taken the jump to like, I'm doing this, everything's on the line, I'm hustling, I'm working those 12 shift and then auditions and blah blah blah, and all of that, and so much love and energy, blood, sweat, and tears into it, and then having no control over an industry, over an industry that's constantly changing, that promotes, that's very focused on looks, that's very focused on connections, and all of these things outside of your control. And like, the more you hold on to that, the more miserable you get. And so I think the point where you're at now, and for myself too, of the time that it's taken me to get to this level of acceptance, of seeing the industry for what it is. I'm not judging it as being good or bad. It's just what it is. But it also means that sometimes that's going to work for me and sometimes it won't. And that's no fault of mine, because we've done the work. We show up, we do the work. After that, it's out of our hands. Yeah. And I will say, of course, in my opinion, of course, your success as an actor, you have success. You have your beautiful wife, that you met, right? School, your children, you're using it to mayor, you have done shows. And I understand, because I'm saying this from the sort of, Zen acceptance place, but I still have my moments where I'm like, but I wanted to be in that movie. I could do that. Put me in that still. So, I mean,
I think what made
still the human aspect.
Yeah, I think what I'm not acting anymore, and I think I had one benefit in that my transition out of acting was really just over time. My life became full of a whole lot of other things that I didn't want to sacrifice for acting, and so it was a really slow transition. 2012, I started temping for Ford Foundation. Then I got hired at Ford Foundation. They let me keep acting. A couple of years prior to that, my son was born. And, then he started getting older and I started wanting to spend more time with him. I didn't want to be gone in the evenings. Yeah. So just over time, I think I just realized that I'm a more full person than a job.
Right.
And there just comes a point where you just start saying, what do I really care about? And I think those things change over time. And at the beginning of my career, I wanted to get jobs and I wanted to climb up. And I think what's tough for some actors is they come to a point where at least what I experienced, there's almost a level of guilt over the thought of not acting.
Yeah.
Or this fear that like, but if I don't do this, then what's going to happen next? And I'm here to say, what happens next is you become mayor.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
That's what happens next.
That's what happens next is you become mayor. Yeah. I feel like I have to leave that there. That's such a great, it's such a great, you become mayor. Yeah, I think everything goes the way that it goes for a reason. And, I'm at this point of acceptance and I get to invest time in the coaching now and other aspects of my life that I love that I wouldn't have done in the same fashion if things happen differently, but we don't know the course that our lives are going to take. So
Yeah.
just got to do the best with what we have, and it's okay for it to change and for it to grow. Because, I know, I'm imagining for yourself too, like initially starting out, yeah, acting was the thing that made me happiest other than my family, and spending time with, my friends and family made me the happiest. But then giving up so many other aspects of my life in order to
Right.
do it, and it not being like, here's your TV show. It's like after a certain amount of time, I'm okay with you coming to me then. You come to me. I'm not begging you anymore. I earned my keep.
Right.
And then I became mayor. So,
And then you became
and then
mayor.
I became mayor.
You should rename your podcast Just a Couple of Mayors.
Just a couple of mayors. Oh, hey, it's the name of the episode. Thank you. You've done my work for me. Just a couple of mayors, writing that down.
There you go.
Of course. Awesome. Well, so I want to thank you so much for your time. It was just awesome to see you and get to hear more of your story. And thanks for sharing it with the listeners. If you want to learn more about Chance, please follow him at Twitter at Chance Mullen. And of course, if you're looking for a coach to help you use performance skills so you can bring more of your whole self to your life and work and voice, body, and mind, you can always reach me at beyondtechniquecoaching@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, subscribe, share, leave a 5-star review. And if you're looking to throw some of your dollars this way, you can also do that at Patreon. It's Samantha Rund, Beyond Technique. So links will be below. Thank you so much, and stay safe and stay healthy.